Hello, everybody. It's Evan Grant. Welcome to This Week in Rangers Baseball, question mark, Ranger Roundup. You know the whole drill if you listened last week. We're still workshopping the name. But for now, it's the Rangers video report with me, Evan Grant of the Dallas Morning News, and my guests, absolutely nobody. Although my dogs are in the background and they may bark at some point in time because that's what they do. We will talk about a bunch of stuff this week. I want to get to whether there is such a thing as the $300 million shortstop. I'll talk a little bit about Adolis Garcia. I'll talk a little bit about some moves in the AL West that may have some importance to the Rangers. We'll talk about Seiya Suzuki, the Japanese outfielder who could be of interest to the Rangers. And I've even actually got a question from a reader, or I guess viewer, Ben Kaysen. Thank you, Ben. I'll get to that before we're all done. So let's take it away as I look at my notes here, because nothing here is unscripted. Let's face facts. It's all about what I can write down. I probably am lying about that too. Anyway, so the big thing for me this week, as I continue to look at the free agent field, is Carlos Correa and Corey Seager are both very much out there on the free agent market, and the consideration is that both, or the conventional wisdom, is that one or both of these players is going to get a contract of at least $300 million, probably in the neighborhood of 10 years. So I had to do some research and look up $300 million players. And I looked these guys up. Actually, what I went back and did is I looked up guys who had signed contracts either as free agents or extensions of at least $240 million or more to give you a little bit more of a broad range. And there have been 13 of them overall, including Alex Rodriguez, who signed not one, but two such deals. And I broke them down into a couple of different ranges. One was to try and get a glimpse of kind of the narrative value of players. I wanted to see where they ranked at their highest MVP voting, to get a glimpse of kind of counting stats or compiling stats or just basically power. Wanted to see where they had ranked in terms of career highs in home run seasons before they signed, and also for a more contextual analytical database. I was looking up their FWAR, their highest FWAR season before they signed these contracts. And in regards to that, Carlos Correa is his career high in WAR is 5.8 for a single season, 5.8 wins according to Fangraphs. His career high of home runs is 26, and his highest MVP total in the voting was 17th. Kyle Seager was a 6.9 WAR guy with 26 home runs and a third place finish in the MVP voting in 2016. Since then, he's averaged about 4.5 WAR per season. So with that in mind, I just want to compare that with the other guys, and I'll just give you some names here that are in that group of 300 or $240 million players or not. And the free agents are easy enough. Harper, Machado, two Alex Rodriguez contracts, Anthony Rendon, Albert Pujols, and Robinson Cano. All of those players had, with the exception of Machado, all of those players had at least one season of higher than 7.0 WAR by the time they signed their free agent contract. All of those players had hit at least 30 home runs in a season, and all of those players had finished at least once in the top five, with the exception of Machado, who finished fourth once. All of them had finished at least in the top three. So my point here being is that in all likelihood, while Seager and Correa, I believe, are the two best shortstops on the market, I'm not sure that either one of these guys is worth $300 million. Now, if somebody's willing to pay them $300 million, then they're a $300 million player. But in terms of absolute value, I'm not sure that that's where I would place them. That's why it makes, to me, some more sense for the Rangers to continue to pursue the idea of either Trevor Story and Marcus Semien. I should say Trevor Story or Marcus Semien, or perhaps a combination of Trevor Story and Marcus Semien for their middle infield spots. That would probably cost them a lot less for each individual player over the course of the contract and be a much shorter term deal than 10 years. Those are things to consider. On the extension front, all those guys had at least 7 WAR seasons and 30 home runs and a top 5 MVP season, with the exception of Fernando Tatis Jr., who had signed his $340 million, $14 million deal at the age of 22 in his 3rd professional season. So, of the 13 guys who have signed $240 million deals, 12 of them had WAR seasons of at least 7.0 or better. All of them, with the exception of Tatis, had 30 home run seasons, and all of them had top 5 MVP finishes. I think that's something to consider here as the Rangers pursue both Carlos Correa and Corey Seager, along with considering Trevor Story and Marcus Semien. I also want to say that I probably should be very much against the Corey Seager signing for this reason. It appears that I can't say Corey Seager without thinking of Kyle Seager, and I know it would be an absolute nightmare for our copy editors. So I've written Kyle Seager when I've met Corey Seager several times. Fortunately, most of the time they've caught it. Several times it's slipped through. So that's a real concern for me. Now, the other part of signing one of these players, any of those shortstops, is that all of them have qualifying offers attached. And we've talked about the qualifying offer and whether or not that might disappear after this collective bargaining agreement is negotiated. However, in the last few days, we've seen 2 teams basically say, we don't care about about giving up a draft pick as compensation for a qualifying offer player. And the Detroit Tigers, who are going to be in the market for a shortstop and who have a lot of money to spend themselves, have gone out and signed pitcher Eduardo Rodriguez. The Los Angeles Angels, who also have money to spend, and as you may be aware, are actually in the Rangers division, have gone out and spent $21 million on a 1-year deal for Noah Syndergaard of Mansfield. I think it's interesting that they're willing to give up a draft pick for 1 year of control of Noah Syndergaard, but I believe the Angels' philosophy is if Syndergaard is really good, the Angels stand a really good chance of being in the playoffs. They've got a great lineup, and if you've got Ohtani and Syndergaard performing at the top of their rotation is going to be really good. If Syndergaard does perform and the Angels don't perform well as a team, he could potentially, Perry Minasian, the GM in Anaheim, could potentially flip Syndergaard for another player that would bring them back the equivalent of a first-round draft pick that they would be giving up in compensation. So those 2 teams have started to push the market a little bit, and I think you may see that the shortstop market may get nudged in that direction too before December 1st, that if teams want to make deals and players may be motivated to make deals now and have some security before a new collective bargaining agreement comes into place, it may force the Rangers to act a little bit more quickly on that front. The other thing I wanted to talk about was one potential outfield addition for the Rangers, and that is Japanese outfielder Seiya Suzuki. There are reports out of Japan that he will be posted in the not-too-distant future, before the end of this month. The way the posting system now works, players free to negotiate with all 30 teams. Whatever team signs him would then own a percentage of the contract that they sign that player to the Japanese team that posted him. So in other words, Suzuki would become a 30-day free agent, able to sign a deal with any MLB team. Once that deal is reached, the MLB team then would owe an additional amount of money. In large respect, it would be equal to close to 20% of the value of the contract, but there are some escalators and lowering percentages as the amount of the contract gets higher. I think it's 20% for the first $25 million, 17.5% for the next $25 million, and 15% above that. The Rangers are considered a contender for Suzuki, and the thing I like about Suzuki is that he is not a swing and miss player, that he does not swing and miss. This is one thing I think the Rangers are really going to focus on with their free agency additions as a priority. I'm not saying that they'll be perfect in that regard, and quite frankly, Story has a higher swing and miss rate than Correa and Seager do. So they're not going to be able to get everything in one place. But if you look at the other outfield options that I think are appealing to the Rangers, Sterling Marte, Michael Conforto, Chris Taylor, Suzuki is expected to strike out at a lower rate than all of those guys. He's athletic, and he could be the most cost effective of those three guys. Maybe, I think MLB trade rumors projected him to get a 5-year deal worth $55 million. Again, that would probably cost an additional $10 million in posting fee. And that's probably going to be a lower salary than Taylor would get, than Marte would get, and certainly than Conforto would get over the course of their deals. And I think in the case of Conforto, for sure, he would probably take a longer term deal than it would take to sign Suzuki. So I think that's worth paying attention to. Of course, because it's Major League Baseball, there is a hang-up. The hang-up being that if he is posted now and he has a 30-day period to negotiate with teams, what happens if MLB goes into a lockdown, as is a very strong possibility, on December 1st? Does the clock stop at that point in time? Would he be able to continue to negotiate with teams since he's not a member of the Players Association at this point? Or would he be prohibited from being posted until there was a new CBA? And I think the first answer, I think the most likely situation is that the clock would basically stop. So if he was posted on November 25th, he would have 5 days before December 1st. If the lockout happens on December 1st, whenever baseball comes back, he would have 25 days from that point in time to negotiate a deal and complete it. Of course, again, the hiccup here is what happens if MLB doesn't get a collective bargaining agreement done until, say, mid-January, mid-February, right on the cusp of what should start spring training. Suzuki's going to be negotiating for another 3 weeks and miss out on a good portion of spring training. So all of that is stuff to be considered. It's all part of the trickiness of this collective bargaining agreement negotiation, which, quite frankly, I feel is once again a case of MLB players and owners fighting over how to best divide a lot of money. I don't think the game is in financially bad shape. I think it's just a question of who gets control of how much money. And I would say that if the owners ever came to a position where they truly made partners of the players in terms of revenue sharing and the like, then I think this game would take off to a different level. I think there could be a different level of giving. I think you would see labor harmony long term, and I think you would see everybody working together on the same footing. That said, I don't think that will ever happen. That's just not how owners are wired, to share their money more equally with players. All right, guys, the last thing I wanted to mention before I get to our question of the week was Adolis Garcia finished 4th in the American League Rookie of the Year. You know, we had a lot of knee-jerk reactions after the finalists were announced, and Adolis was not one of the 3 finalists. As I said at that point in time, and I'll reiterate, you know, it really didn't matter that he wasn't one of the 3 finalists because I didn't think he was going to win. Randy Arozarena was going to win, and he did, and he was the only player named on all the ballots. What I do think is significant about Adolis in terms of an accomplishment is he did get the second highest number of first place votes. He got three first place votes. Wander Franco, who finished ahead of him, got 2 first place votes. Franco had more second place votes than Garcia did. But overall, Garcia was named on 13 of the 30 ballots, whereas Franco was named on 12. So he got more first place votes than the third place finisher, and he also was named on more ballots than the third place finisher. So in terms of the point totals and the way points are awarded, Franco ended up with 30 points, Garcia with 27. And so what we ended up with is you announced 3 finalists last week, but it wasn't really a competition. And I don't think there should be a whole lot of um, concern or anger over the fact that he wasn't one of the finalists. Because if you don't win, you're a finalist for 3 days for a week. It's just kind of a silly hype building exercise. And in the end, Adolis Garcia and Wander Franco basically finished with the same number of votes. The last thing for the week is a question. I was very thrilled that somebody actually took time to ask a question. Ben Kaysen actually got on the YouTube page and asked this question. I'll let you know that, again, you can tweet a question to me at Evan_P_Grant on Twitter, I think most of you may already follow me. You can always email me at egrant@dallasnews.com and just let me know that it's a question for the YouTube video. But Ben's question, which was also posted in the comments on the video, was what are the odds that Sam Huff will be the catcher in 2022? And I would say that the odds are greater than 0, but not by much. I don't think the Rangers have any real feel that Sam Huff is going to go into the season as their catcher. They were prepared for Jonah Heim and Jose Trevino to split time. Huff missed a lot of time last year, did not catch it all, was going to do some catching in the Arizona Instructional League, did a little bit of that, was going to play a little bit more in the Arizona Fall League, mostly as a first baseman and perhaps once as a catcher, but he felt some weakness in his knee while taking ground balls at first base and was shut down just 6 games into the Arizona Fall League. The Rangers say there's not a long-term concern there. They're just being prudent and cautious, but it did shut him down. He did not have, he had fewer at-bats than they would have liked this year altogether. He did not catch it all this year. And so I think the priority for next year will be getting him behind the plate as much as possible in spring training, getting him innings at the minor league level, and then potentially getting him back to the big league level. The difference between Sam Huff and Josh Young, who I think the Rangers want to open the season at third base, is if you look at Josh's set of statistics as a minor leaguer, and particularly this year, which was his first full year in the minor leagues, Josh Young produced at the level of an elite minor leaguer. A 300-plus batting average, OPS above 900, all the benchmarks that you would want to see met to say this guy performed at an elite level, that he is ready for the next challenge. I think this is one place that I've mentioned. The Rangers have been a little bit short in the past. They've promoted guys without them necessarily thriving at the different minor league levels at which they've played. Now, with Josh Young, I think he's proven that he's ready to take that challenge. Still going to have to earn the job in spring training, but he'll be given that opportunity. I still expect the Rangers will add some kind of insurance policy just in case Josh is not ready or were to get hurt. Perfectly makes sense for the Rangers to bring back either Charlie Culberson or Brock Holt on a minor league deal going into spring training. So that's it for this week. We'll try and get to you next week before Thanksgiving, which could be our last report before the shutdown. Hopefully not. And just because baseball shut down doesn't mean I will be. So I'll be here. Tweet me or send me your questions. Give me your feedback on these videos. Tell me if I need to redecorate my room, whatever. But it was good talking with you again, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.